Welcome back, everybody, to the Keepin It Rural Network. Today, we are really excited to talk all things gas. And by gas, I mean propane. Steph Hennen is a native Minnesotan growing up in a family dedicated to protein and advancing the industry. She currently works for Lakes Gas as their marketing manager. Steph's love for propane began with her dad and has continued to drive her passion to be a part of the industry she truly loves and admires. We are so excited, Steph, to learn more about propane. But first off, let's learn more about the reason behind your passion for propane.
Yeah, absolutely. When I tell people that I work in propane and I love it, I get a lot of comments of, oh, like Hank Hill. And I'm like, absolutely, yes. I'm the female version of Hank Hill. Like you said, I grew up around the industry. My dad has worked in the industry, around the industry for 36 years now. Grew up in a small town, Morris, Minnesota. And in that town, there is a company called Westmore Industries. And they manufacture trucks and equipment for propane and other fuels as well. But propane is a big part of their market. And I always thought the trucks were cool. And I think I was maybe like a junior in high school. And Westmore had built a pink bobtail. A bobtail is a truck that hauls propane. They built a pink bobtail. Pink is my favorite color. And I'm like, oh, yeah, so this is awesome. This is so cool. I'm like, Dad, can you guys do another one? And he's like, we can't just build pink bobtails, like a customer has to want one. I'm like, okay. So I got interested in it. I was 16 years old in high school and I started working in the marketing department at Westmore. Marketing was an interest of mine during high school, and so got to know the company a little bit better. And then my senior year of high school, I went to a trade show with my dad, the Minnesota Propane Association trade show up in Duluth, Minnesota. It was everyone across the industry in the state gets together, looks at new product, talks to colleagues. And I watched everybody interact at that show and just how nice and kind people were to each other, even if they were a competitor, and how welcoming people were to me as a 17-year-old who really didn't know what she was going to do. And from that moment on, it was decided for me that I'm going to go into an industry that cares about people and is kind, because kindness means a lot to me as a person. And so I went off to college. I went to South Dakota State University.
Go Jacks!
Yes, absolutely. Yes, love to do that. I live in a big NDSU area, so
I understand.
But no, I went to SDSU for agricultural communications and agricultural leadership. I was big in FFA through Natasha Mortensen in Morris. And although I didn't grow up on a farm, I grew up in a very agriculturally driven area. And so agriculture was an interest of mine, but also knowing that I wanted to go into the propane energy industry kind of felt like it's just a good avenue for me to get more knowledge on the agricultural industry and how myself, with knowing I was going into the propane industry, how I can help mend the two industries together. Absolutely loved everything about SDSU. And then after college, graduated with those 2 degrees and went back to work for Westmore Industries. I was their trade show coordinator within their marketing department. I was there for about a year, and then I got a job offer with another company called Marshall Excelsior Company out in Michigan. So I moved my life from my hometown over to Kalamazoo, Michigan for 2 years. Absolutely loved it. I was also their trade show coordinator. They're a company within the propane industry as well, but they manufacture smaller parts like regulators, valves, fittings for propane equipment. So I was with them for, it was about 2 years. And then I was at an industry meeting. And yes, propane people have industry meetings to just get all the propane people together in one location. So I was at a meeting and I met my current manager, the CEO of Lakes Gas, Trent Hampton. He told me that he had just been the CEO for about a year at the company, and he was looking for a marketing manager. I asked if I knew anybody back in Minnesota, and I said, I don't. If I can think of someone, I'll let you know. Not thinking of myself at all, but we chatted a little bit, and he came back and he said, I think you'd be a good fit. And I'm like, okay. So talked to him a little bit more, and a couple months later, I moved back to Minnesota. And I became the manager of marketing at Lakes Gas. It's a brand new department. We did not have a marketing department prior to me coming on board. So it's been super exciting, a lot of fun. It's super fun for me to be back in my home state, close to family. I have a niece and a nephew. I'm only a 3-hour drive from them instead of 15 when I was in Michigan.
Yeah.
loving life. I've had an interesting career path already, but here I am.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. I think about how you talked through knowing what industry you wanted to be in so young. It's just incredible. And to know this is the career path I'm taking, but this is the industry that once I get out, this is where I'm going. I think a lot of people struggle with that part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know we were talking before we started this podcast that I know nothing about propane. Lindsay knows a little bit.
I'm just good at using it.
Hey, that's a good thing too.
That's excellent.
What is it? How is it produced? How much is used worldwide, etc.?
Yeah, it is funny because even within the industry, not a ton of people know like the chemical makeup of propane. We had a managers meeting a couple months ago, and that was one of our Jeopardy questions that we had. What's the chemical makeup of propane? It's C3H8. 3 carbon, 8 hydrogen is the chemical makeup of propane. How we get propane or how we produce propane, it's a byproduct of petroleum and natural gas. And so through the refining process, propane, it's a lighter gas, so it comes to the top of the barrel when you're refining. And so it is a byproduct of oil, petroleum, natural gas, things that we're already creating. Worldwide, I did try and look it up. Worldwide, I'm not 100% certain how much propane is sold or used. We call it odorized propane because you do put odor into propane during the refining process, just to make sure if there ever is a leak that you can smell propane. Otherwise, it is an odorless fuel. So in the United States, we sell 10 billion gallons. We are a net exporter of propane, meaning that we export quite a bit of propane as well. I believe it's about 11 billion gallons that we export. So we produce a lot of propane in the United States, which is wonderful for us because we get it, at a reasonable price most times. I mean, ebb and flow with the market and where the market's at. However, we also import some propane, especially in the Midwest, just because we're so close to Canada. We'll import some through the rail as well.
Just to fill that demand, Steph.
So we, at Lakes Gas, we operate in the upper Midwest, mainly Minnesota, Wisconsin. We have one location in North Dakota, one in South Dakota, one in Illinois, and one in Michigan. And we get our propane from both Canada and Conway down in Kansas. And we just do that just logistically. It's the best way, the most inexpensive way for us to get our fuel to sell to our consumers at a reasonable price as well.
Yeah. Is there like an industry that uses more propane than another industry? Or, I mean, who really depends on propane? Because I think about a gas grill. Obviously, that's probably a large market, but who uses it?
Yeah, that's a great question because there are so many uses for propane that people just don't really understand or think through. The main use for propane within the United States is residential home heat. So that's water heaters, cooktops, anything within the home that is heated, especially in rural areas where they're not on a natural gas pipeline. You see 500-gallon propane tanks in yards, and those are used for mainly water heat, home heat, and a lot of gas top cooking as well. Other than that, I mean, the agriculture industry uses, I think I just read 80% of farmers in the US use propane in some capacity. And so agriculture is a huge industry for us as well, especially in the Midwest when it comes to grain drying. The majority of grain dryers operate on propane. But we also have things such as like flame weeders in the industry that use propane. But yeah, industry-wise, when we're looking at usage, residential is by far our biggest market. Otherwise, it's like commercial, agriculture, road. We put propane into cars to make them run.
Fair enough.
We're just getting into the grilling season, which is like my forte, which depends a ton on propane. Where else other than the barbecue pits, the LP tanks, like what is something propane is used for that would really surprise people?
That's a great question. And it's something I love to talk about because there are so many uses for propane that people just don't recognize. I touched a little bit on them. Obviously, it's huge in the agriculture industry at many different capacities. We have a location actually in Minneapolis. We're the only propane company that's physically located within the city of Minneapolis. And that branch does nothing with residential. They are all commercial. And the majority of their customers are school buses, So in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Public School District has 70 propane buses. So 70 of their school buses that transport kids every single day run on propane.
Wow.
I know, it's so cool. And especially in Minnesota, not just a city, but especially when we're talking like rural areas, they warm up faster, they're safer, they're a lot more inexpensive. The cost of the fuel is extremely inexpensive compared to diesel. If we're comparing electric buses versus propane buses, electric buses cost about $310,000. A propane bus costs $80,000. So we're saving school districts a ton of money. And that's one of my favorite things to talk about because the school system and we want to help them save money so that they can put it into different things within the school, within their students. So that's one of my favorite things is the Minneapolis school district. And then there's a ton of other school districts across Minnesota that run on propane as well.
I would never have guessed that. Ever.
No. And working in a school system, I just wish that people would know that's an option. Like,
Absolutely. Yes, I agree. And that's something that at Lakes Gas and in our industry that we're trying to promote a lot more because it can save school districts a lot of money in fuel costs, in maintenance costs, because propane engines are cleaner than diesel engines. So there's a lot less maintenance. With regulations, it's going to be easier because, diesel has a higher carbon intensity.
Yeah.
And I suppose the diesel gels up in the winter, the propane doesn't. The electrical doesn't like to start at 20 below.
Exactly.
Batteries freeze up, Wow.
Yeah. So that's one of many things. Another fun thing is food trucks. I'm sure you guys love food trucks because who doesn't? So food trucks, they can either run on propane, but a lot of them use propane to cook their food. We'll have 100-pound cylinder tanks on the back of the food trucks. That's what they use to power their grills and fryers and stuff inside of the food truck. There's just so many things that propane can do. And it's so fun to be able to talk to people who don't know that. And just because, they think of the grills being the main thing when grills, 20-pound cylinders are a huge thing in our industry, but we're so much more than just that.
And I would assume that's something that's still evolving as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We have a association, they're called PERC, which stands for Propane Education Research Council. Their whole focus is safety and technology of propane. They do extensive research on how to keep appliances and people safe and how to develop technology that is going to help us be even more efficient and just different technologies in general too. One of the projects that they're working on right now is called CHP, which is combined heat and power. So they're basically units that run on propane that can power like small villages. There's a couple villages in Hawaii right now that are using them. So it's a CHP power unit that kind of gets hooked up and it just powers and heats small operations, whether that is like a construction operation or like a village. So yeah, we have a lot of things cooking on the back burner right now.
I know you mentioned the carbon intensity of the propane and the diesel and how they compare, but why is propane a good energy source?
It's interesting because propane is a byproduct of petroleum and natural gas. Both petroleum and natural gas are fossil fuels. However, when we look at fossil fuels, we can't just look at that word and group all fossil fuels into one category because they are not the same. Propane is a clean burning green energy source that is extremely efficient, extremely safe, and extremely portable. Propane is one of the only fuels that we have in today's world that is as portable as it is. So just for a little bit of background context, and I get in the weeds sometimes about some things just because I think they're really cool.
I like the weeds. We're good.
Yep.
To transport propane, it needs to be minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which with the technology we have and the trucks and equipment that we have is very easy for us to do. A similar energy source, which is natural gas, in order to transport natural gas outside of a pipeline, it has to be liquefied and it has to be negative 240 degrees. So it is 200 degrees colder. That equipment costs a lot of money. And so that's why you don't see trucks hauling natural gas. You'll really only see CO2 or propane. When we look at how it affects the environment, the carbon intensity of propane is 80. And carbon intensity just is basically the output of carbon and any other greenhouse gases that are being pushed out into the air per unit. So when we are using propane to heat homes, to dry grains, the amount of carbon that's being pushed out into the air is what the carbon intensity is. And so the carbon intensity of propane is 80. Carbon intensity of natural gas, very similar, also 80. The carbon intensity of diesel, I believe, is 110. And what's really interesting and something that we begin to talk a little bit more about is the electrical grid. So the way that the electrical grid stands, as it stands today, the carbon intensity on average across the United States is 139, which is crazy because a lot of people think of electricity and electric and they think clean. But as the grid stands today, that's not the case. Propane is definitely part of the clean energy conversation. And we want to make sure that we disassociate ourselves with fossil fuels, because yes, we are one, but you can't categorize them all the same because we do operate very differently than other fossil fuels and even the electrical grid today.
I'm learning so much.
I know, it's so interesting.
For real. Yeah. Yeah. I never thought that it would do that superbly compared to other energy forms.
And I think around here, people think of electrical plants as nuclear, not
Yeah.
coal. But Wyoming, is like the mothership coal electrical plants out there.
If you look on a state per state basis, it is different. So out in California, the electrical grid is very comparable to conventional propane as it is today. One of the states out east, their electrical grid is barely nothing because they're all hydropower. Minnesota, where I reside, the electrical grid is about 212-ish carbon intensity. There's an app, it's called MISO, MISO. They're like the power grid for the Midwest. And I have their app, and you can go onto their app at any time, and it tells you the percentage of where your electricity is coming from. So right now I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota. 34% of the electricity is coming from coal. 41% is coming from natural gas, and then 10% from nuclear, and then a little bit from wind and a little bit from solar. And so the app tells you at any given time where your electricity is coming from.
That's wild.
Very cool. So just like anything, Steph, there's always talk that we're going to run out of fuel. And the rumor is we're looking forward to shortages in 2023. Can you confirm, deny?
Yes. So I'm very glad that this is brought up because I want to squash any rumors that are possible. The way that the market stands today, the way pricing stands, we don't see any shortages coming. So to put a little backbone behind that, at this time last year in the Midwest, in propane inventories, we had 11.7 million barrels of propane in inventory. And that was a 10-year low for us. So that was the lowest inventory that we have had in 10 years. This year in the Midwest, we currently have 14.6 million barrels of propane in inventory. That's a 5-year high of inventory levels that we've had of propane. The market pricing is looking really good right now for everybody, and inventory levels are looking really good as well. And so we absolutely do not see any signs of shortages happening this upcoming fall, especially like we may have seen in years past. Inventory levels look good, pricing looks good. And I know there's always, a little bit of concern around just when the economy has some issues, but on an inventory level and on a price level, our industry is looking very good, and we're very ready to supply propane to end users.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Way to squash those rumors.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a good thing. And I think about how every industry has its hurdles that it has to jump over. And you always hope that shortages are not one of those. But with something like gas, there are some inevitable things that you do have to deal with and plan and prepare for. So what are some of those challenges that you see with propane specifically, Steph?
So our biggest challenge right now is the fight for the environment. Current United States legislation is definitely gung-ho about creating a cleaner environment, which personally, as an industry, I am all for it. I would love to see our environment clean up. I mean, you want a good, clean earth for your kids and grandkids and generations to come. However, like I talked about earlier, as an industry, we get lumped into that fossil fuel talk when that is not all that we are. And one of the biggest things that we're talking about and we're trying to talk to consumers about and legislation about is that if we want to clean up the air, if we want to reduce carbon, and we truly want to get to a zero net carbon environment, we cannot rely on one energy source alone. It cannot be electricity coming in to save everything. It cannot be hydropower or nuclear coming in to save everything. It has to be a solid energy mix. And propane is a really big part of that energy mix. Propane, along with electricity, nuclear, hydropower, that is truly what's going to help us get to zero net carbon. One thing as an industry that we are doing to combat the fossil fuel talk is we are now creating renewable propane. Conventional propane, we sell 10 billion. Last year in renewable propane, we sold 15 million gallons. A lot of that was out on the West Coast and like down in Texas. But in the next 5 years, we're hoping to continue to grow the market share of renewable propane just because it's actually a really simple fuel to create because it's only 3 carbon, 8 hydrogen.
Can you define what the renewable part is?
Yeah, absolutely. So how we make renewable propane right now is through feedstocks or oil, like cooking oil, used cooking oil, new cooking oil, and animal fats. And so they use those byproducts to pull the carbon and hydrogen needed to create renewable propane. So it's really cool. But there is a really cool thing that it's probably a few years old now, but just coming to light. It's called the camelina plant. I don't know if you've heard of it or not. It is a cover crop that was developed, I believe, by the University of Minnesota, and I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me for sure. Camelina is a cover crop. It grows really fast, and it doesn't damage the soil nearly as much as some other cover crops may. So what we're doing with camelina is once it's harvested, it's being taken to a refinery, and we're using that to create renewable propane through a refining process. We pull the oils from that seed, and we can make renewable propane that way.
It's incredible.
I know it's so cool. And there's so many smart people in this world that blow me away that they could create something like that. And I'm all for it. I will talk about it every single day because it's just such an amazing thing. But yeah, so the camelina plant is something that's extremely exciting. There's only one refinery right now, and I think it's out in Montana.
Okay.
And so we're hoping in the next, few years to get another few refineries so that we can increase the use of renewable propane across the United States.
Wow. My mind continues to be blown. I think a lot of this information is just stuff that as a general public who uses propane, we have no idea what's underneath. It's the iceberg effect.
Yeah.
We only see so much of it.
Yes. And that's why I love talking about it, because there's just so many amazing things that go on within our industry. And sometimes the people in the industry, we just need to get out of our own way and talk about it to people because there's a lot of really cool things going on right now.
Absolutely.
I'm still just blown away by that you're even using animal byproduct. If you came to my place, a meat locker, took the fat that I collect in barrels, would you boil that down then?
There's some kind of refining process that people who are way smarter than I am
Same.
to do that. But yes, because propane is just 3 carbon, 8 hydrogen, and we're pulling that to create renewable propane.
Because also right now they're working on making jet fuel out of animal beef lard.
Yeah.
So that's got to all be on the same line then.
Yep, absolutely. In the industry, we refer to it as SAF, so Sustainable Aviation Fuel, SAF. And yeah, very similar process that is used, and we fit right in line with renewable propane and SAF.
That's so cool. That's so
Yeah.
cool. What's the biggest challenge in your industry? Is it people who are, going green? Is it government? Is it EPA?
A big portion of it is our government, legislation, EPA, the rules that we're instating. And what's nice about our industry, and I mean, I think almost every industry has this, is
For sure.
we have a National Propane Gas Association, NPGA, and they focus on advocacy on a state level, legislative level, and a supply level as well. And so they're kind of our advocates. We have lobbyists through them that go on Capitol Hill and talk to legislation about certain rules and laws that they're putting into place that may affect our industry negatively, that would in turn affect everybody negatively. We also have a PAC, a political action committee, which I am actually chair of right now.
Atta girl.
Super fun. I've never been political in my life, and all of a sudden I'm the PAC chair, which has been fun because I've learned a lot.
Best way to do it, just get thrown in.
Absolutely. I just, I love it. But I've learned a lot about the legislative process and how everything runs and what we're doing at NPGA to make sure that we have an industry in 20 years to be able to work in. We have really good resources on a national level and on a world level that we have people fighting for us in the background.
Yeah, which is so incredibly important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you talk about the legislative side too, and I would assume that's got to be someone's full-time job, is just lobbying on behalf of you guys. I know every industry has some sort of person that's leading the way so that you don't have to be at Capitol Hill all day long doing those things. What other jobs are available in this industry?
We have a ton of different jobs. When we look at it from my company, so we're a marketer. We buy propane and we sell propane to consumers, to end users. There are a lot of companies like ours in the industry. And a quick plug for my company, we are the second largest family-owned propane business in the United States.
Very cool.
Past year, we're the 14th largest overall propane company in the United States.
Impressive.
We sold 68 million gallons last year, so
Yeesh.
we're loving it very much. It's a fun little brag for me to throw in there every now and then.
Absolutely.
We have companies like my company where we sell propane to the end user, but that's not the only thing that's possible in our company. We have manufacturers, we have wholesalers, which they're the ones that sell propane to companies like mine. We have equipment manufacturers, vendors, we have all kinds of different companies. And just the way that the job pool is right now, everybody's looking for people. On our end, we're looking for drivers, service techs, customer service representatives. We have a lot of openings for all those positions, along with other companies like us. They always have positions open for drivers, which I think every industry has a position open for drivers right now.
Yeah, probably the biggest shortage in, for sure, agriculture as well. But I would say all industries is truck drivers.
Yeah, and that is honestly one of our challenges in our industry is finding young talent and bringing in young talent.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm extremely passionate about. I'm like to consider myself young still, working in the industry for 11 years. But I like to talk to other young individuals and tell them how cool our industry is. And there's always something within the industry that they can relate to, whether they like agriculture, they grew up in a small town, or they're a big city kid and they want to work at a more corporate company. We still have large corporate propane companies in the United States. What's nice about our industry is you can have a master's degree, a PhD, and get a job, or you can have a high school degree and get a job.
Yeah.
We absolutely don't discriminate against degrees. And so that's something that I love because, I don't think that a 4-year degree is for everybody. Some people just want to get out of high school and start to work, and that's okay by us. Come work for us.
Amen, sister.
Yes.
I advocate for that all day long.
Good. I absolutely love that. I agree.
Are there we talk about truck drivers, are there any requirements for your truck drivers when they come on?
Yes, because propane is categorized as a hazardous material, you need your hazmat and you need to be 21 years old to drive a propane truck. How we've handled that in the past, if there is, an 18-year-old out of high school that wants to come work for us, there are some things that 18-year-olds can do within the company. So we would love to take them on, mentor them, train them, and then eventually move them into a driver position.
Think about the base knowledge you're going to get in those 3 years prior to driving. It's just going to make you uber qualified.
Yes.
So then on a marketing role, what are the main responsibilities of your job? I know you said you were brand new with it, which is awesome because then it gets to be your baby and you get to create and innovate. What have those responsibilities grown to be?
Yeah, it's been so much fun. The past 3 years have been an absolute whirlwind for me. It is the longest job I've had since I graduated college, which is a surprise to many because I moved from 2 jobs after 2 years. But it's been absolutely wonderful. Our company has been around since 1959, so over 60 years. And when I came on board, the marketing responsibilities were dispersed across a few people. And so I got to take those on and make them a little bit my own. Since then, I have hired another individual. She is our social media and marketing coordinator. Her name is Sam Griner. She's also from my hometown, and she also went to South Dakota State.
I know Sam. We were in FFA together.
Yeah, so she works for me. She works in our industry at our company, and so she runs our social media, and she has a graphic design background. And so it's been absolutely wonderful to have her on board because we do our company. We have 54 locations across the upper Midwest. Our biggest value proposition is that we are local to the communities that we serve. A lot of our locations are in small rural towns. And so we employ local, we serve local, and we get to be in the local community. With those 54 locations, Sam and I run marketing or help with marketing for all of them. So we're definitely busy.
Yeah.
I love being
I would
busy, so I'll take it. But yeah, we help on a very local level. We get to work with Chamber of Commerce. We do a lot of sponsorship, donations to local communities. And then, of course, we have an overall marketing picture where we're promoting the industry to our consumers. We're promoting safety to our consumers, talking a lot about the different aspects of propane, what propane can do for you, how important it is, how safe it is, and things like that. It's been hectic, it's been chaotic, and I've absolutely loved every second of it.
There's a big role of jobs there.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on, girl.
Absolutely. We love being busy, so we'll take it.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's very obvious throughout us getting to chat with you that your passion for propane is so huge. What continues to drive that for you?
The biggest thing that pushes me to stay in the industry, to be so passionate about the industry, is the people that are in the industry. They are just, salt of the earth, good people that I get to be around. It's male dominated, and I've never really had an issue feeling like I fit in the industry. As a young woman, I've been very welcomed into the industry. A lot of people are extremely supportive. They're excited about the future. You can get sometimes caught up in the this is how we've always done it mindset. I really don't see that too much in our industry. A lot of people are excited about the future. They're excited about the technology advances that we're making.
Yeah.
They're excited to see new people come in and make things their own. And so I continue to be passionate I continue to talk about our industry because we just have such amazing people in our industry who are supportive of everyone in the industry. My whole career, I've luckily never really fell into being treated too poorly. I've always felt supported. I've had great people on my side to get me to where I am today. And so that's my main driving factor for staying in the industry and wanting to be in the industry outside of propane being super cool as today.
I've never met someone so passionate about propane, but I'm loving it.
Good.
She makes me want to be passionate about it.
Kudos to your industry, though.
For real. Yeah. And I've talked to many teachers who they've left teaching or they've left to go to a different school, and it's all because of the people they work with, right? That is the main part of our jobs that either drive us to succeed or drive us to hate what we do. And so people are huge. It's really cool that you started your interview with that today. And then now we're making it well-rounded. We're saying, you know what, people at the end of the day are it. That's it.
Absolutely.
We know you live in Minneapolis now, which is very different from Morris. So even though you live in Minneapolis, outside of propane, how are you keeping it rural, Steph?
I absolutely love this question because I grew up in a small town, a very rural location. And although I do love being downtown Minneapolis now, it holds a very special place in my heart. The people in rural America are just amazing people. And what I love so much about my job in my industry is propane tends to operate in rural America. That is where the majority of our customer base is. And especially at Lakes Gas, that's where 98% of our customer base is. So I get to be around rural communities and get to know local chamber of commerce and local fair boards and go to county fairs still. And, you know, we're so supportive of rural communities because they drive our industry, they drive our country. And I love being able to still be a part of that while I live in the city right now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Steph. Lakes Gas is definitely lucky to have you. You're such a passionate advocate for the propane industry, which speaks volumes of your own nature. Honestly, we didn't realize there was so much to know about propane, and it's amazing how it has made us and how much it impacts many of us on a daily basis.
And you're brilliant about it.
Yeah, you are, you know your stuff.
I'm just in awe.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I have a feeling you'll be a very popular podcast.
Yes. Come sell my school some propane buses.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, we're always willing to come talk to schools too about propane because I think that's so fun. But no, I really appreciate this opportunity. As you've seen, I adore this industry. I think propane is really cool, and I love being able to talk to others about it a little more. And it plays such an important part in many different industries, including the agriculture industry. And I really appreciate this opportunity and very thankful to chat with you ladies about it.
It's not a party without you there. Follow Our Crazy on Facebook and Instagram, and be sure to check out all episodes and extras at keepinitruralgirls.com.
That's all, folks.